Alright, it is 9:29 a.m. November the 11th, 11/11. Happy Veterans Day. It's going to be the same thing as the other day. I'm going to be focusing on morning panic bounce plays, except for IN and D. I'd like to see a reversal day on this one. As for the other ones, totally potential morning panic bounce plays in the making. As well as HYSR, because it did one yesterday successfully. And I will be watching AABB if it tries to make any kind of move towards the highs. That's what I have for right now. Pretty much the same as yesterday, I think, in terms of what am I looking at. Alright, it is 10:09 a.m. and I want to make an update. And I think, to summarize, I think I should be a little more aggressive on my morning panic bounce plays. RGBP I was looking at the most out of all of these OTCs for morning panic bounce play, because it still, was near the highs. It wasn't really that bad in terms of the daily chart, and it was looking pretty clean in the morning. This is one where I could have taken an entry, I think, at 252, and unfortunately, kind of like when there's a seller at 252 at the ask and it kind of breaks and it looks like the bottom might be in, it has like a quick move to the upside, and then I don't want to chase it anymore. So I think I'm going to consider level 2 reversals now on morning panic bounce plays, and probably just be a bit more aggressive, because most of these setups, when they have a morning panic bounce play and they make a bottom, it does like to try to come back near that bottom, and then it doesn't really break below it. This is a bit of an exception of the rule in that I had a quick wick right there. But a lot of times they try to get near the bottom or at the bottom, and then they kind of reverse afterwards. They don't just immediately, although this one is the case where it did, they don't just immediately do something like this where it bounces back and forth. A lot of them kind of trade in a tiny range, and they try to do something like that. And I think from yesterday, I wanted a certain stock to come back to the bottom, which was the wick right here, but all it did was get to the bottom of the candle. Here's a clear example with ILUS. So I think I'm going to be more aggressive on morning panic bounce plays, and that I might consider level 2 reversals even more, to not miss a setup like RGBP that only does a bottom and then it immediately does a bounce afterwards. But then I might try to consider trying to get in at the bottom of the range that it trades. Maybe not trying to get the wick, although sure, it would suck if I get in at the bottom of the range. Say I get in right here at 186, and then the next candle, just pretending that it didn't get lower, gets to the wick, and then I could have gotten a better price. But I think that's something I can try doing, is just try to, when these things try to make a bottom and then they bounce a little and then they come back, to but try to get in at the bottom of the candle and not necessarily the wick itself, because that seems to be what's going on more. Just a quick adaptation, I think. For example, this one had a bottom at 4452, and this one did have another move at 4452, although this one actually did come back to the wick, and then this one was at the level again, and then it was trying to lift off, and then it did do like a jump on air, and that would have been kind of cool there with ILUS. I did trade AABB. As you can see here, it did make a bottom at 246, and then it kind of bounced back, right, and then immediately try that same level. So here's an example where the bottom was the bottom of a candle, it wasn't a wick, and it did have a wick trying to get near the bottom. So I can be like more aggressive, try to be in the moment when that's happening and try to get executed there, because they still work. I just have to adapt to how they're trading. And I was in here for this level 2, this morning panic bounce play lower low setup. My entry was 947 right here at 244, so right here 244, and my risk level was this wick breaking and then having slippage, and then I get out at 24. So for example, I'm in at 244, 1500 shares, and then if it breaks the wick right here and then it makes a bottom, not a bottom, but it makes a breaks down, and maybe I get worst case scenario, I don't get sold until I'm at 24, right? 366 becomes 360, that's $6, very close to my $8 risk level. And I think at the time I thought I was going to maybe get 2449, but I got somewhere in the middle, right? So even that's 367 That's $7. So that was the idea there, and the issue is that there were just too many people dumping their shares on the bid. And then there was this guy at 2449 right here that eventually became 2448, and then as you can see here 2446, that just would not break through. And it felt like maybe it was like a short seller who just had hidden size on the ask and just getting a whole bunch of shares executed, and then there was a lot of people dumping their shares on the bid as well, so it wasn't looking that nice. And then here is when I took a sell at 951 right here, and you know, when it broke this little baby range at 243 that it was holding for a few minutes, I did take a sell. It never broke below the wick, but I was afraid that maybe, you know, it could at the time and just easily break through and then make a move for that 24 level. So I was very quick on my exits, just in case that, you know, it would do something like that. But in this case, it actually held it. I did even think about trying to go back in, but I have a rule to not do something like that because, you know, I haven't been profitable when I'm in the setup and then I get out and then I'm in at the same range again and then it fails again most of the time. But this is one where it actually worked out. If this was a short seller, that was pretty dumb, because I would at least try to be short above VWAP like always, not just here because it shows right here it was above VWAP, but yeah, definitely a lot of people were selling their shares at the bid, and that maybe short seller or whatever guy that, you know, was making that wall trying to break the price down. But you know, it did make the move eventually. The only thing I could have probably have tried differently is not very much, because, you know, had this have broken the wick, this thing could have easily made a move towards 24, and then it could have a lot of room on the downside. So I don't regret it too much. You know, hindsight 2020 would make me say, oh, I should have sold half when it broke the level here, and then, you know, when it actually breaks under it, sell the other half if it does that. But then you would still be a part of this. But, you know, when it broke that level, you don't know if it's going to break the wick or not. It's very quick when it breaks down. A lot of people are going to panic and sell out, and I think I want to be as quick as I can to get the best price possible, even if it doesn't, you know, break the wick, which is what I was thinking about. So I think that really summarizes that pretty well. IND didn't really do much. Yeah, definitely I'm going to try to be more aggressive on level 2 reversals, keeping in mind that they can be choppy, trade an ugly range like this, but a lot of the times, you know, they do go back to the bottom of the candle, not the wick, although sometimes the wick as well, like ILUS right here, but a lot of times it's the candle. More minutes were around here near the bottom of the candle than the wick. So I'm going to take that into tomorrow, and God willing, I can be a part of that, maybe get some nice trades, and then, you know, try selling in pieces if I am in a setup that's working. I don't regret my AABB, although yes, you know, clearly it did work out eventually. You know, it did make a move to 25. So yeah, I think some good lessons were made. I will be continuously looking at this point for any future setups, but for morning panic bounce plays, that's probably it. Alright, it is 10:35. I've been watching this for a while. I even tried to get in a few times. Maybe it's gonna try now that I'm recording, but you know, the idea here with IND is that, you know, it had this move here, it has this bottom, and then, you know, it's having a gap up. So it had a gap up today. Look at the daily chart. This thing could be like a first, you know, like a reversal day, an actual reversal day, especially because it had a gap up. It has this uptrend, and then it kind of downtrends slightly higher than here, not really. And in theory, I could try to be in, right, anywhere here, and I did kind of try. I just don't like you know, the way it was with this big seller who's been here for a while at the ask. But maybe it can try to do something now, and I might trade small. In theory, if it breaks 135 and I get out at 133, that follows my $8 risk level. I'll keep watching this one. I just don't like that big seller there. But, you know, this thing can try to put up higher lows off of VWAP, or maybe even something I can hold for a longer period of time. Just with that in mind, that maybe it can try to be a reversal day if it wants to do that. A lot of these stocks that make these moves towards the upside, they do try to come back again once they, hit a bottom at some point. Alright, it is 10:43. I never traded it. It did start to downtrend, and then a new big seller showed up on the ask. So yeah, this is a setup that actually would have worked out. IND is really that depressing. Not as depressing as NSAV was when they had that one day where it just fell the entire day, and then the next day it did like an 80% down gap down or something like that. But yeah, this thing can obviously try to do it from here and work, but I'm no longer really interested in it for that reason. As for the others, I don't have much of an interest in HYSR, maybe a choppy inverse head and shoulders at some point, but I would be already a bit late for something like that. RGBP, I was wanting it to do like a dip under VWAP. This happened way later in the day. Not the best volume, but it did do it. ILUS never did a dip under VWAP after the morning panic bounce play. I'll still watch it. AABB, this one was kind of weird in the way that it traded, and it was pretty quick here. I was making a video too, so I probably wouldn't have been interested in it even if I wasn't making a video, but it could have been like an inverse head and shoulder, shoulder, head, shoulder. That's not really too bad, but as you can see, it was a level 2 reversal. TGGI keeps uptrending. I have no interest in trading it at this point because it's floating off of VWAP. It's pretty cool, but I'm not interested in trading it. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I'll be looking. Maybe there are some other first day, green day, OTC runners, but if that's not the case, then maybe there are going to be no more trades, and I'll be totally fine. I think I learned a lot with morning panic bounce plays, just trying to play off of the, not just be more aggressive because some will have level 2 reversals, but to play off of the bottom of the candle. And actually looking back later, I did have an order at 938, which was right here at 4452 with ILUS, right? So I did have that in mind. Now maybe I just didn't get executed here, so I canceled the order, but now I have it, much more in realization than before to consider the bottom of the candles and not necessarily the wick. Although, again, this one did get to the bottom of the wick, but a lot of these, they do come back to that same bottom of the morning panic bounce play, but not the wick if it has one. It's usually the candle bottom. So that's a good lesson, and yeah, that's what I have for right now. Alright, it is 11:21 a.m. and I think you can hear the shakiness in my voice because I don't have too much experience shorting, but this looks like a short setup. I'm short at 11:13. That was a time period right here, and that was at 2579, and I will cover if it breaks this level here with some slippage at 27. It's pretty close to my $8 risk level, and it could be like a lower high off of here, but really just the fact that it had this run up here, it's right at its highs. It might not get to the highs, it might fail like the way IND was trying to get at its highs again, although this one's a bit different because it had a downtrend and then it run ups again. So that's what I'm looking at, and in theory, ideally maybe a cover under VWAP if that happens, but I'll continue to watch this. I can totally be wrong too. I also like the fact that this line right here is the red to green mark, so it was green on the day, was red, and then it tried to stay green, kind of struggling, then it fails. It is trading with a bit of a spread too, but they can totally make it uptrend with a spread. This thing can totally go either direction, but I feel like more things are towards the downside than the upside. I'll continue to watch this setup. This could be one that could take time. This could be one that immediately spikes towards the high. It could do either one, and I'll just keep watching it, but that's where I'm at the moment. Alright, it is 12:05 and I want to make an update. I am still in the setup, so it's about to be an hour since I've been in, and again, it can go either direction. There are some times when I guess the market makers or whoever's in charge of it, they do get a little desperate when it kind of breaks a level they don't want it to break, so it trades with a large spread and they keep the ask at the same high price and the bid at a super low price in hopes that they can turn it around. And that has happened. I do like now this trend line that I made here. It kind of gives me a guide. And at the time when I was short right here for the first time, it could have followed this downtrending trend line, which would have been nice, but it did hold this one that's uptrending, and there is starting to be a gap. So this thing is a guideline, it's not an exact science. So I'm just going to continue to watch this. I might consider covering right here at mid-range if it's just taking way too long, and it's no longer trading back and forth, but it's just in a channel for a super long time. Or definitely if it gets to this level right here, I'm gonna cover immediately and that'll be totally fine. But at least right now it is under this trend line that I made here, which I try to make it as accurate as possible following this and this drop right here. And you can see it did trade off of it for a while, but it can always try to come back or something like that. And yeah, I'll just continue to watch this. In theory, at least right now, this is a lower high from here, and it is trading with more spread, so it's a little more desperate, but they can still try to turn it around with a big bidder like that. I'm just going to keep watching this to see how it does. But yeah, I'm still in the setup here. It can still go either direction, but I do feel like more things are towards the downside. However, they can totally try to make it run towards the previous high and maybe try to break out then and there, or at least try and get closer to where we are here. A lot of things can happen, but this is where I'm at the moment. Alright, it is 12:54 and I want to make an update. It did continue the downtrend, and in theory I should have considered covering when it was under VWAP, but I was a bit greedy and I was remembering the previous AABB trade where I covered at what was the bottom at the time, and then it just bounced a little. It barely even made a move towards the upside, and then it broke under. But the difference between this trade and that trade is that this one was way above the EMA4 when I was short this one. You can see the EMA4 is that red line right there. In this case, it's not really the same thing. Now it could continue the downtrend for all the reasons that I mentioned, but at this point I'm just going to keep watching this and see where it can go. I will definitely cover if it gets to that level, but I might be more inclined to cover, especially if it trades here for a super long time and it does like if it does something like ILUS yesterday, which was just trading in this boring trend line, although I guess here a tighter one with AABB for a super long time. There isn't a lot of people who jump in on the ask with large size, but there are a lot of people at the bid, and they tend to have hidden size. So I'm going to keep these things into consideration. But yeah, I'm going to keep watching this, but it can consolidate here at any point, and then it can try to make a move towards the upside in the future. Alright, it is 1:05. I just want to record and just show how desperate the market makers or whoever's behind the stock from making it go towards the downside. Look at the ask. It's at 257. They got rid of the ask that was a lot lower and they brought it all the way up to 257. So if somebody were to hit the ask, it literally goes back to the top like nothing is going on. And at the same time, the bid is there where it is at 2525. Now sometimes, okay, 257 is there, but somebody takes a hit at the ask, their shares actually, yeah, what I was going to say, get executed not at 257, but dude, these guys are desperate. I don't even care if I lose money. They're just super desperate to keep it up. I'm not saying anything good or bad about the company. I'm just saying whoever's behind the trading here, they don't want it to go down. They really don't. But I'll continue to watch this, and I deserve it if I lose money on this trade. If I'm being greedy, I'll have to admit that right here, before I even get out of the trade, just in general. But this is where the stock is at right now. Alright, it is 1:36 p.m. and I finally got out of my trade. at 126. I did place an order, a buy order to cover, and that was at 121. So I sat there for a good 6 minutes until it went through. Dude, I just got tired. I got tired of being in this stock. You know, desperate market makers or whoever's behind this stock trying to get it to go up, right, with such a large spread. And, you know, then they throw in big people at the bid or whatever, and then they bring it up a little, and then that big bid at share execution gets taken out on the ask. I honestly don't know, but excuse me, I was right at 126 is when I finally got covered, which was right here. Right, because it just broke under that level. I had my order at 25.42, 25.41 was that 80K that eventually became a 40K bidder. You know, and then he got taken out, and I was, you know, my cover order was taken out with that, and then it broke under to 25.26. So in theory, if I were to somehow get a cover at the bid, I'd be up like another 70 cents. So I'd be up, I don't know, just you know, not that much. So here's the thing. I think what I learned from this is that I should have just covered here when it was under VWAP. Why? Because that was my goal. Not because I had to hold through all of this, because that was my goal, but I did get greedy there. It was just a tiny % gain there, but it would have been nicer if I would have covered here. The issue is that when it was down at these lows, yes, I didn't want to cover, and then it just bounces a little and it breaks under. But quite frankly, I just got tired of this price action. You know, if it's truly a good stock, market makers shouldn't have to, you know, do all this mess to keep it up. But, you know, maybe it's just low volume. I don't know. I don't want to be a conspiracy guy, but I should have definitely covered here because, again, that was my goal. And the issue is that, you know, because I did lose on that first AABB trade, that long setup, which was way back here. Although the setup did work out eventually, I wanted to be green on the day, but, you know, because of me being greedy, wanting to be green on the day, hoping this thing can break further down, I didn't cover at my goal, and then I had to, you know, not cover at the best price. Still at an okay price. No more just watching this paint dry here with this desperate promoter or probably market maker at freaking 20. At this 26 level at the ask, and then it would trade this low. But you know, I should have definitely have covered right then and there. It did fail that trend line here. It would have been nice if it followed this one. It would have been a lot quicker, but that's fine. You know, this thing can totally try to build itself later today and try to get near the highs or something like that, and maybe make a move towards this wick tomorrow or something like that. But you know, for right now, I'm out of the trade. I'm gonna make an update later and see what this thing does. I was out at 2541, which is actually right at the bid right now, but yeah, I'll make an update to see what it does later. I should have covered here. I was too greedy. I wanted to be green on the day. I should have just traded the pattern. Excuse me, but besides that, not a bad attempt, not a bad strategy. I was feeling very uneasy when it was following this trend line, but you know, it did break under it for all the reasons that I think it could have went down, and it did, but you know, I just didn't want to be a part of that anymore. I guess I'll just go briefly over the other ones. Nothing here, just consolidation, and then IND is downtrending, unfortunately. This one doesn't get a break. HYSR is turning around eventually, but not the best volume. TGGI just hanging in there. I'll make an update when the markets are closed, unless I just happen to trade something else, but I doubt it. Alright, it is 4:18 p.m. and although it was a red day today, I'm only down like 32 pennies. And I had one trade with AABB that did not work, a long setup, and I did have that short setup that was up $1.90. Really, my first trade with AABB did work, but I'm gonna have to really rewatch what I was saying at the video, you know, when this was happening. But you know, had I have maybe You know, oh, now you remember. I thought it was gonna actually break the wick here, so I got out, but I actually held on to it and it worked later. And I wasn't gonna jump in on the trade. I don't regret that trade actually. It was gonna be profitable had it of not have done that. And then I decided to, you know, go short, which was all the way back right here, right here. And then I did cover eventually at right about here, just when I was just freaking tired of the price action. And then it actually did break lower. You know, the thing was just trading crazy, and I kind of got exhausted. You know, them trading with the high freaking ask. Like, look at this mess. The bottom is 25 cents, and the ask is freaking 25.5. Are you serious? You know, and then sometimes it was even worse than that, I think. But, you know, it did get even lower. But ultimately, I just would have been happy had I have covered here. In fact, even if I were to have covered here, it was actually a point in time when I probably could have covered and been profitable on the day. Let's just see a cover at 25.24. What that would have been. I mean, it's just a little bit, right? But, you know, 126. And then my original position was 128, and then 126.20. So I actually could have been green on the day had I have covered there, but I was too greedy, and I thought, you know, I was down like more than just $2.18 on the other trade. I thought I was down more, and I wanted it to play out even more, and it did get lower, but it doesn't matter. It would have been very nice had I have covered back there and not have held through this crazy mess right there. It did get to 2461. I'm going to find out what the percent is. I'll be back. I just want to see what was best case scenario. Okay, I'm back. You know, even best case scenario, I would have been up like 3.5% had I have been short at that level. I was right there at 2579, give or take. And even if I were to have covered at like 2487, which was this lowest dip right here, I wouldn't have been up very much. It would have been only 3%. So in theory, that would have been maybe give or take like $3 and like 90 cents. Just not very much. So definitely a setup that I thought wasn't too bad, but I think in the future, if I'm going to consider a short selling setup, I want it to be like the other setup that I took on the second, I believe was this day. Something that is just very, very nice off of the EMA 4, and that, you know, right here was above it, but it wasn't like way above it. It wasn't overextended. I think that could have been nice very too. As for the other one, CGGI fell off a cliff, but I'm not going to short this one. I mean, well, I'm going to be short a $20 position. RGBP, nothing here. Maybe it can try to turn around. I don't know. ILUS is just hanging in there. HYSR did uptrend later on. We'll see what this one does. INND. Hopefully this can have like an officially nice green day, and then it could really do something nice. So yeah, that's all I have. It could have been a green day today, but overall the setups didn't really work that nicely, at least the way I wanted it to. Whether it was this with AABB and that, you know, it looked like it was going to break the day low, or all the way back here when I was short, because they were just dragging on the price action, making it as like as hard as they can to have it stay near the highs. I think I still learned a lot from that trade. I learned a lot just in general price action. It really reinforces some ideas that I've learned about you know, market makers trading a large spread when they're desperate. Either they're trying to keep it on the upside or on the downside. Usually trying to keep it on the upside. That's all I have for today.